Hello, hello. Welcome back to Supposedly Fun. I am Greg. I don't always do Friday Reads videos, but I thought I would do one this week just because I got a couple of things going on in reading right now, and it'll help me kind of clarify my thoughts about some of them. So the first thing that's happened this month is I finished Under the Banner of Heaven, which I was listening to on audiobook. That is by John Krakauer. I will talk at length about that later. I think it was a little difficult for me because I've known about the book for a really long time. I've wanted to read the book for a very long time. And it had always been sold to me as a true crime story that also talked about the history of the Mormon Church. But it's really a book about the history of the Mormon Church that uses a crime as the hook to discuss that history. Like, for hundreds and hundreds of pages, you're not talking about that crime at all. You're talking about the history of the Mormon Church. And it's good, but I feel like there's a false expectation that you get when you go into that book not knowing that 95% of it is the history of the Mormon Church. It's interesting, it's well written, but it's hard to get around. I was really thinking I was getting in for like a true crime book, and it's not. So that was part of why I don't want to talk about it right now, is because in my head I'm still a little like, what? about that. So I finished that. That is the first book that I finished in this month. The second I also finished this week was a buddy read with Sean, the book Maniac, and that's A Ladder to the Sky by John Boyne. I'm not going to talk about this too much right now. I'm going to save it for a video next week because I have a lot of thoughts. A lot of thoughts. And I think I need the weekend to process them in a way that will allow me not to rant about this book, which should probably give you a very good idea of how I feel about it. I didn't like it. I'll say that for now, and I'll get into the details later. I will say it was a very good experience reading this book with Sean. He allowed me to rant, which was very kind of him. He was very supportive, and honestly, I probably would not have finished this at all if it hadn't been a buddy read with Sean. So that is all I'm going to say. For now, I'll keep you in suspense. You won't be in suspense, you don't care. But I will keep you in suspense over the weekend while I gather together my thoughts in a way that would not be me just yelling about this book, which might be fun for you, but wouldn't be fun for me. So there you have it. No, I was going to say something else. We'll get into that. The other things I'm reading right now, I have been reading Me, the autobiography of Elton John. I haven't gotten super far into it, which is bad because it is now late at the library. I'm on page 89. Basically, I've only really been reading this so far as to give myself a break from A Ladder to the Sky. But I really want to try to finish this weekend because I'm enjoying it. It's not great, but the story is very interesting and it's compulsively readable. Elton John tells a great story, which, shouldn't be surprising. So while I would say it's not the best written autobiography, it's still entertaining. It still feels very honest. So far, it doesn't have the kind of internal reckoning with the past that I really am fascinated by in a memoir, say like Sally Field's autobiography. But it's still good. So I'm very eager to finish this, hopefully over the weekend, so I can get it back to the library. I'm also currently listening to the audiobook of The Indifferent Stars Above, The Harrowing Saga of a Donner Party Bride. This is by Daniel James Brown. I have the Goodreads page pulled up, sorry, because I didn't remember the author's name or the subtitle. So I am just coming up to halfway through this one. I've been getting through this audiobook very slowly, and I got through Under the Banner of Heaven very slowly as well. I was having a little bit of a hard time paying attention to both of them. Usually I can, if I'm working on a project for work, I have no problem at all listening to an audiobook, and I can follow the audiobook while I do my mindless work as well. Apparently this means mindless work. Let's go with it. So, but for those two audiobooks, and a little bit back with other things I was trying to listen to back in October, I was having a very hard time following along. I would notice like I hadn't been paying attention, and I don't think it's fair to just power through a book, even though I feel like with some nonfiction books you can pick a little bit up later. I don't think that's fair to the book. So I ended up backing up a lot to try to listen to what I had had not been paying attention to. And that is happening to me with this one as well. But I'm enjoying it. The narrator of the audiobook sounds like Sam Waterston, which I think is delightful. I had tweeted the other day that I hit play on this audiobook, and the first thing I heard was 2 men were dismembered and left to die. But with that Sam Waterston-esque voice, it sounds so soothing. It was still a little like, oh, wow, we're in it now. But it was, yeah, the narrator's voice really does a lot. So in talking about the story of the Donner Party, he focuses on a woman who married into the party and followed along. And that is interesting because it gets into a lot of the history of it and the situation with her and her role in society, which is a nice angle to follow along with. The only other thing I have going on in reading right now is actually not with me, it's my husband. He's been reading Find Me by Andre Osmond. He's listening to the audio, which is narrated by Michael Stuhlbarg, who played the father in the movie. The father has a role in the book, and he hates it. He didn't want to talk to me about his opinions of it for a while because he was worried that I still wanted to read it. Well, I still want to read it, but it is interesting. You know, he's hating it very much. So I was reading a book I was hating, and he was listening to one that he hates. So that's what I've been reading this month, and I would love to hear what you've been reading this week and what you're looking forward to. I'm hoping I will finish this weekend and talk to you about it then. I'll talk to you about Ladder to the Sky next week, and we'll catch up. But until then, happy weekend, and I will see you again. Happy reading.